All righty, good Thursday afternoon to you, and welcome in. That was a smooth transition there. You're learning, Jack. You're learning.
Learning and growing, daily basis.
Was it just kind of slowly fade that one down instead of cutting it? But that's all right. Hey, you're getting there. You're getting there. We're getting there as well. Thursday afternoon edition of the Chico Bormann Show. I should say Thursday morning into afternoon edition of the Chico Bormann Show. Of course, our new time, 11 until 1, Monday through Friday, right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All the other stuff, well, it stays the same. You can stream us live on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. You can also tweet at me personally. My Twitter handle is Big Play Chico, at Big Play Chico. And then, obviously, you can do so on YouTube as well. We strongly encourage you to go over there, type in the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and you are all set to go. Telephone lines are open, 216-626-7901, 216-626-7901. Coming up in the noon hour, at noon, had to shuffle some things around. We were going to visit with our buddy Hoynesy. He's going to be cutting it a little too close to first pitch today for the finale of that series in Kansas City, which is at 2:10. So Hoynesy will join us tomorrow from Chicago as the Guardians will be taking on the Cubs. But first things first, let's take care of the sweep. So instead of Hoynesy today at noon, we'll talk to Eric Edholm with NFL.com, our good pal. And one of these storylines, I keep saying, and I think I said it yesterday as well, that I love that the Browns are flying under the radar. Well, Eric says he says that they are flying under the radar, but it's time to start talking about them more. I'd rather keep it on the down low, hush hush. But we'll talk to Eric about that coming up around noon. All right. First and foremost, I think we got to start off with the Guardians, 14-1. Now again, it is Kansas City. I realize that. Kansas City is really, really bad. But, you know, we've seen them play poorly against bad teams, the Oakland A's, at times the Royals. So the good news about this is you win 14-1. You've won 7 of your last 9. You're now in first place by a half game. Granted, you don't have a winning record. You're still a game below 500. Hopefully, they'll get to 500 this afternoon. But you can start to see the power. Jose Ramirez with a grand slam. He's batting .411 with 14 extra base hits over his last 18 games. So Jose's starting to heat up. Josh Bell hit a 465-yard bomb. His power's starting to come together. We know about Josh Naylor. How about brother Bo Naylor? He launches his first home run and has 3 hits on the night. So you're starting to see these guys and those middle guys too. Josh has been doing it a while. Jose, to some degree, this month he has really turned it on. But now you've got, hopefully Josh Bell is coming out of that a little bit. Could this be a sign of things to come? Now, again, we caution because it is the Royals. Like, they have the Cubs coming up tomorrow for that weekend series. And then they have, I believe, 7 games right before the All-Star break. First 3 are going to be tough. You've got the Atlanta Braves, who, by the way, the Braves helping us along here with the Minnesota Twins as far as the division race, because Atlanta's just been mowing them down of late. The Guardians are going to get their shot at the Atlanta Braves, and it won't be easy coming up next week. And then they get 4 more. So 4 more against these same Kansas City Royals, and then you go into the All-Star break. So, if they can hold their own against the Atlanta Braves, I mean, I know you still got game today in the Chicago series, but when they return home, that homestand right before the break, if you can hold your own against the Braves, which won't be easy, and then continue to do what you've been doing. If you don't get a sweep, you take 3 out of 4. I think that's a 4-game set. Take 3 out of 4 against Kansas City, and then you go into the All-Star break, and you're feeling pretty good. And you're possibly in first place, depending on what Minnesota has done and all of that. So I think all in all, we're starting. It's tough to sit here and say, oh yeah, the Guardians are back, and they were dealt a huge blow with Tristan McKenzie. Now, as we hear right now, there is a possibility that he can return. I doubt that's going to happen. Essentially, when they say 1 month, they're going to let some inflammation, secede a little bit. They're going to be able to give him another MRI. They're going to be, but it feels like, and God knows, I hope it's not true, but it feels like it's a serious injury. So we shall see on him. That really hurts them. We all know about the Bieber, trade rumors. We'll see about that as August 1st approaches. But this is still a team, and granted, the division's terrible, but the the Guardians don't have to apologize for that. And Major League Baseball just cares, okay, who won the division? Whoever wins that division is going to the playoffs. So if they can do that, and that's a long way away, but you feel good, I think, where they're at right now. You do have to take into account a little bit anyway that it is the Kansas City Royals. Hopefully they can finish it off today. Shane Bieber against your boy, your boy, Zach Greinke. I'll tell you what, I was actually discussing this with somebody yesterday, and I've come to the conclusion that, and I think I said this that day, he's definitely not a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think even you would agree with that.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, he's not a first ballot, but I could see, he's approaching how close is he to 3,000 Ks? He's like 100 away.
Yeah, he's really close. We checked that last time on Tuesday, but he's definitely nearing in on it. Yep.
So 3,000 Ks, a Cy Young, an ERA 3.4. That's pretty good. I mean, today's day and age of baseball, that's pretty solid. And he's played on some bad teams. He's played on some good teams, obviously. When Arizona in the playoffs.
Houston was really good when he was there.
Houston in the playoffs.
Game 7.
The only thing for some reason, I'm thinking he wasn't all that great in the postseason, his combined numbers.
I can check that out. We can get back.
It's not. We don't need to do a deep dive into Zach Greinke. You brought him up the other day, kind of out of the blue, and I was like, "Wow, is Zach Greinke a Hall of Famer?" And my immediate reaction was, and I do this with Hall of Fame candidates, what's my initial right then gut reaction? And I said no, but I think I was maybe focused too much on, is it a sure thing? It's not a sure thing. He definitely gets consideration. He may very well get in, but it could be a while for him. It's not going to be right away.
He brags about it a lot. He's currently very close to the 10-10 club of 10 home runs and 10 stolen bases for pitchers, which is not very common these days. I think he's at 9-8, I want to say. So maybe that's a very
Shohei Ohtani's that is very, very impressive. Why do I feel like
he also was in the AL for a long time in his career too?
Oh, he's with Kansas City.
Yeah, when the Royals would never play.
Yeah, so he might very well get there. But we hope he's having a rough year this year. We hope that continues today. Again, Bieber on the bump, so you're feeling good about the opportunity to sweep. And if they sweep, they get to 500, and boy, that would be very, very good news. So we'll see about that. All right, 216-626-7901. Free agency tomorrow. I believe it's tomorrow at 6 that players can officially, sign and do all that sort of thing. And as we know, the Cavs are the rumors. It started out it was quite the bonanza, and then Brian Windhorst had to say, hey, when I say outlandish, I'm not referring to trading Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland. And, by the way, Cedi Osman, that just Woj bomb coming. They don't have to be just on Fridays. A Woj bomb from about 5 minutes ago. Cavaliers fully guaranteeing. Was this just five? Yeah. Fully guaranteeing Cedi Osman's $6.7 million contract for 23-24. Sources telling ESPN Osman has averaged nearly 10 points a game in his 6 seasons with the Cavaliers.
Maybe that's the outlandish move, paying Cedi Osman $7 million to play basketball off your bench.
Well, I mean, here's the thing with Cedi. Is he great? No. When he goes on, I mean, when he's hot, he is scalding hot. When he's not, he's, well, not. $6.5 million, like, I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the Cavaliers are able to do because they don't have a lot of room. Like, I think Fedor wrote, and we're going to have Chris Fedor on tomorrow's show as well. I think Fedor wrote that they are like $38 million. They're over the cap right now, but they're like $38 million away from the luxury tax. And again, I know people are going, oh, Dan Gilbert doesn't get. Yeah, he does now. He may not have cared back when LeBron was here, but he cares now. So I'm sure they're going to try to avoid that. So as far as like a big splash, but I don't think this team needs a big splash. Get some, I feel like, and I could be wrong here, I feel like with shooters in basketball, it's almost like the running back position in the NFL. Like, there's so many of them that, like, do you really want to pay a shooting guard a ton of money if like nowadays everybody, I'm not going to say everybody can shoot, and obviously I'm saying the Cavaliers need shooting guards, but what I'm saying is that there are a lot more shooters today than there were 10 years ago. You can find those guys. You just have to make sure it's the right guy. And that's not easy to do, but that's, Kobe Altman is tasked with that. We've talked about, and the rumors can persist about Miles Bridges. Could it possibly be Max Strus is being talked about with the Miami Heat? I don't know. And from a money standpoint, I'm not even going to begin to touch that because I always say, like, basically all salary caps in all sports, well, baseball doesn't count, but football and basketball, it's kind of like you need a master's or sometimes even a PhD trying to figure out how they finagle all this stuff. With the NBA, I fully admit I have no clue how they do it. Like, I have no clue. They say it works. Okay, it works. But I don't think, and I think Windhorst has said it. I think Fedor has said it. I think we all know, hopefully, there's not going to be a big splash. So anyone hoping for like a trade, Jared Allen's name's been dangled. We don't know if that's, going to come to fruition. As far as Donovan Mitchell, as far as Darius Garland, you could forget about those two guys because that's not going to happen. I think now it's going to be kind of a middle of the road or perceived middle of the road guy that can, hopefully shoot the basketball and 3-and-D. We always say 3-and-D. How about you? Can you just shoot the basketball? Can you be consistent shooting the basketball? Yes, you got to play defense, but can you shoot the basketball? And my feeling is, and maybe I'm wrong on this, like, how with running backs nowadays, and Nick Chubb was an exception here in Cleveland and should have been, but like around the league, I mean, Dalvin Cook saw it. I don't know if that was necessarily fair or not, but the Minnesota Vikings said, you know what? We can run Isaiah Pacheco with the Kansas City Chiefs last year. That's a 7th rounder. You're seeing more and more of these running backs that are found maybe in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying I think a lot of GMs, like they do in football with the running back position, I think a lot of GMs, or at least I wonder if a lot of GMs in the NBA feel like I can find the shooter. I don't need necessarily a high-priced guy. I just need to find the right fit. That's Kobe Altman's job to bring that guy here, whoever that guy is. But I think it'll be interesting tomorrow. Are we going to see a flurry? I mean, this might be relatively boring for Cavs fans. I mean, not boring in terms of you definitely want to see who they get, but I think, especially after last year and the big Donovan Mitchell trade, and I think everybody was like, oh my gosh, yeah. If you're waiting for that sort of intense feeling, that sort of big move, it ain't gonna happen. But you got to find, some role players. You got and key role players. Like role players to me, like now it's not that fun to talk about them, and even during the season, it's not that fun to talk about them. You know what? It's fun to talk about them in the postseason, in the playoffs, when guys for the New York Knicks were abusing the Cavaliers. When you had, Hartenstein and Josh Hart and hell, even Obi Toppin, the Dayton Flyer. I mean, and he hadn't done anything for the Knicks pretty much all Cavs series. He comes off and he's playing extremely well. So, role players, I don't think really become a huge focus of your team until the postseason, but they are very important acquisitions, and they will be very important for this Cavaliers basketball team. You agree there, Jumpin' Jack Flash?
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to in any sport towards the end of the year. Like, I'm a big hockey fan personally. Hockey playoffs just ended recently. Lucky enough, my team won the championship, which was pretty cool, but that's the kind of guys that win the titles. It's not the guys.
The Vegas Knights?
Yeah.
How did you, it's not like it's a storied franchise, so how did you?
No, I never really had a favorite team growing up. Columbus is the closest, but, weirdly enough, most hockey people in Cleveland hate Columbus because, I get it's the Ohio team, but it's more of the team that's, everyone, not that you hate people who don't watch hockey, but it's, when people start trying to talk about hockey who don't know hockey, they'll talk about the Blue Jackets. So there's, this weird hatred almost, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, this happens a lot in this city. That's an interesting point you bring up. For me, personally, I'm not a big hockey fan. But I don't look down. I have friends. Yeah. I was fortunate, like I said, when I worked in Erie and the Ontario Hockey League was there, and I saw a lot of really, really, incredibly talented guys come through there. So I definitely got an appreciation for it. But, yeah, there are some that kind of look down on others that if you like, and then there's some of the ones that like hockey, that like to talk hockey, that look down on others that don't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair. Now,
it's a weird mix. You didn't lead talking about Adam Fantilli, so no one would blame you for not talking about hockey.
He doesn't play in Cleveland.
Exactly. No, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
right.
That's what. Yeah,
but what's interesting is, he's a Michigan guy.
Yeah.
And going to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, it is really funny. And they have Kent Johnson, who they drafted last year, also went to Michigan. So
yeah,
they're two best players for the future.
By the way, did you see the vest that Fantilli had on?
Yeah,
that was, dare I say it, that was badass. I like that. Normally I don't pay too much attention to because I know it's become like a fashion show, and that's fine.
Did you see what Grady Dick was wearing when he got drafted?
Yes,
NBA?
I did. Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah, that was. It was not good.
Yeah,
not
good.
It
wasn't. How much would it take to get you into that suit?
Well, I think people would block it before it would even get to that point. Put it that way. So
I'll start the GoFundMe.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that. No, I'm glad you brought up Fantilli, though. That's that vest was really, really nice. But no, I to your point, I think that I've said this a lot about Cleveland. There is it's kind of like Browns and Guardians fans. A lot of times they'll go at it. Browns fans resent the fact that the Guardians not get more attention, but they've had more success. And then when Guardians fans say to Browns fans, and here's the thing, shouldn't we all be one?
Yeah.
Like, I've never understood that, and I didn't understand it until I moved back here. Okay, so obviously, everybody knows I grew up in Northeast Ohio. I went to college at Ohio State, and my first job out of school was in Erie, but I always was, Northeast Ohio, even when I worked in Erie. Like, it was not that long of a drive. I'd come to plenty of Guardians games, couple of Browns games, couple Cavs games. So, no big deal. I come back here to work in 2011, 12. And I was like, am I imagining this, or are Browns and Guardians fans really at odds with each other? And they the Browns were terrible, remember? The Guardians in 2012 were terrible. 2013, that was when Tito came aboard. Yeah. Yep. And then even into the 2016 season, because the mantra around the then Indians was always, oh, the Dolans are cheap. And more often than not, maybe I'm wrong, but more often than not, the people that said the Dolans are cheap were huge Browns fans who were upset that the Browns weren't taking over the topics and the talk show circuit, because it should be Browns 24/7. And look, I'm a Browns fan as well. Grew up going to I would say growing up as a kid, I was probably a bigger Browns fan only because the Indians, when I was growing up, were not very good. Baseball was my favorite, but the Browns going to the dog pound, and that's my best memories, as we were telling Bernie last Friday. But I'm always perplexed by that, how it's like I don't know, it's like they're not on the same team.
That's so true. I was talking about this yesterday, actually. So I'm an 02 baby, so when I was born, I didn't get to see Brian Sipe, Bernie Kosar. I have none of that older affinity to the Browns, and I love the Browns, but they basically sucked since I was born. 07, I was in kindergarten when they went 10-6 with Derek Anderson. Then I was a freshman in college for the Baker playoff year. But so I've grown up in a world where 9 of the last 10 years where I'm really following sports, the Guardians have had a winning season, 6 playoff appearances in there. I will never get how the second training camp starts, for a team that wins less than 4 games every other year, it seems that the team who's in first place always gets no attention. It's crazy to me.
Yeah,
I get it, because it's a football market. It's always gonna be a football town, and I love the Browns too. But it just mind boggles me how good the baseball team is, and how often they're good, and how hard it is to do given this the lack of a salary cap, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
and then the Browns until recently, they've been good teams, haven't really panned out record wise. They were awful for a long time, and it still just dominates every single year, no matter who the quarterback is, what regime it is. I'll never get it.
Now, see, and I'm not saying those people that would say and still say, oh, the Dolans are cheap. They're not. I mean, I get that frustration because, yeah, I wish they would spend more too, and some years they could spend more. Some years they did spend more, and that's what bothered me is that, in 2016 and then going into 2017, okay, so they disappointed in the postseason in 2017, but 2016 was one of the most magical rides I've ever been on as a fan in any sport, because it came, Trevor Bauer goes down, Carlos Carrasco goes down, and you're thinking, how are they going to do this? And the mighty Cubs, and they took him to 7 games, and man, if not for a delay, you never know what would have happened, what could have happened. But that 2016 club, I think a lot of people were on that bandwagon, but then there were some that were kind of reluctant about it, oh yeah, hey, I'm rooting for him. So then 2017 rolls around, and at that point, some of the diehard Browns get out of here, Guardians or Indians talk, a lot of those people were the ones saying, well, the Dolans are cheap. Well, actually, in that offseason is when they signed Edwin Encarnacion, is when they brought in Jay Bruce at one point. They were – so, yes, I mean, you can't nobody's going to sit here and go, oh, yeah, Dolan is Steve Cohen. I mean, the baseball landscape is never going to be like it is in the other sports, and it doesn't seem like they really care too much about it. So, and that's not an excuse, that's a fact. Because again, could he spend some more? Could they spend more? Of course they could. But it was those years that I realized, like I first noticed it when I first got back here in like 2011, 2012. By the time 2016, 2017 rolled around, I was convinced. Like, there are people out there in this city that are diehard Browns fans that really want to see the Indians struggle or, get close and just to make fun of them and then to say, all right, well, it's time for the Browns.
Yeah.
And that used to it still does, drive me crazy. I don't understand it.
I think part of why they don't spend too, it's a little bit off topic, is like looking at least like since I've like closely followed the team when I was younger, almost every bigger, like above $5 million free agent signing we've had has not worked out. Like Swisher and Bourne in the 2013 offseason, you got nothing out of that. Yonder Alonso was gone within a year. Encarnacion, I mean, he did hit his 30 bombs. Like, he's fine in my book, but I know some people look back poorly on him. Like, I remember I think he got injured in game 2 maybe.
Hurt his ankle.
Yeah, that was really sad. I think we would have won until then. That was like the turning point for me, despite the fact we won that game. Then Zunino didn't work out this year, and I like Josh Bell personally. I think he's going to turn it around. He always has in his career so far. So,
yeah, I hope what we saw last night, what we've been seeing from him, is legit. Like he's had times in his career, certainly with the Pirates when he had a monster year, and with the Nationals. But then it was like that trade happened. He went to San Diego, and there was a point this year. Terry Pluto did the numbers, where dating back to his San Diego day, or the day that he got traded to San Diego, to like it was a date I think in May. It spanned like 438 at bats, and I think he only had like 8 home runs. And now
he also weirdly though, despite how bad he was in San Diego, he was their best hitter in the postseason, which people forget. Like he had a pretty strong ball there.
Yeah.
He
I
always,
like Josh.
I love him too. I think he always turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, they're paying him though, and they brought him here to hit some home runs.
Yeah.
And drive some gappers. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's got to hit 50 home runs, but you're certainly not looking for that pace of 440 at bats and 8 home runs.
Then he'll be back here on the huge contract next year too, because it's a player option, right?
I don't know. I'd have to look at that. I think, right now, I think you look at this team and, there's an opportunity for, obviously with the division being the way it is, for them to, not just get in, but get in feeling good and playing well. And hopefully that's something that they usually do every year under Terry Francona. This year has been difficult. And as I said, I've fallen prey. I raised my hand. Before the year, okay, hey, progress is linear. No, it's not. It never is. And guys like Andres Jimenez and guys like, Steven Kwan, and I'm not saying those guys are having terrible years, but after last year, I kind of expected them to be, well, they just pick up where, and that's on me, because that's not how the sport is. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. And so does it mean they're a bust? No, but you can have that happen now all of a sudden, this season where everybody just went cold. You're expecting this offense to be pretty darn good, and it just hasn't materialized until recently. They've been pretty good, and of course, last night 14 runs, their highest, I think, single inning. They had 7 runs in an inning against the Royals last night. But this afternoon they go for the sweep, as it'll be Shane Bieber taking on Zach Greinke. So. As far as the Cavaliers and free agency goes, and certainly welcome your calls, 216-626-7901. I don't think there's any one. Miles Bridges sounds like one that either people feel really good about or they're turned off by because of the domestic violence and the suspension, and you get that. I don't think there's. Is there somebody out there that folks are really gravitating toward? Like, is there a Max Strus? Is there a Dante DiVincenzo. Like I don't think anybody is just completely overwhelmed with one of those guys. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. But we'll get more information on that coming up tomorrow. But the latest news, the Cavs have fully guaranteed Jetty Osmonds. He was dangled in a few, or rumored to be dangled in a few trades. But the Cavs ultimately decide to hold on to Jetty, $6.7 million for the coming season. Like I said, he can be as hot as can be, and then he can be about as ice cold. And it is very, very frustrating. So, all right. I hate to transition it like this, but I said domestic violence. Domingo Herman pitched a perfect game last night. It's kind of like everything about it just doesn't really add up, right? Like you're not really loving it. Even if you're a Yankees fan, you probably didn't see it because it was on the West Coast and it was the Oakland A's. The guy that you would want to see do it wasn't really Domingo Herman. And I'm just, throughout baseball, basically. Like all of the elements, everything added up to, oh, yeah, Domingo Herman had a perfect game last night, which is incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. But, again, he was suspended for how long? 81 games, I think. Then he had the PEDs earlier this season. So he's had his fair share of run-ins, not only with the real law, but the MLB law. And he's the guy that gets the, 24th perfect game in MLB history. Hadn't had one since 2012 with Lenny Barker. And then prior to that, the biggest drought was Catfish Hunter in 68 to Len Barker, and everybody says it at the same time. I was there. No, you weren't. There were only like 15,000 people there. But Len Barker getting that in 81. So, it is a pretty cool achievement. I think the thing about a perfect game is it feels like, and nothing against Domingo Herman, like Lenny Barker's a good, here in Cleveland, we love Lenny Barker, but nationally, Lenny Barker's not like a household name. And there are some of those, Philip Humber is on the perfect game list. What did Philip Humber ever do? Like you'll get, yes, Jeff.
He was a legit bullpen arm for a couple of years.
Exactly.
He had his day in the sun.
Exactly. What did Philip Humber ever do?
He's in the Vinny Castano Hall of Fame of relievers.
You get like, I don't know. Speaking of Hall of Famers, yeah, like how many of the guys, now we have 24? How many of the guys who have pitched perfect games, including Domingo Herman, now some of them are still pitching, so it's not necessarily, well, yeah, a couple of them are. Yes, Jack.
Do you want the number?
As far, I'm going to guess.
Okay.
As far as 24, so 24 guys, perfect games. I've got to believe it's low. I'm just trying to figure out how. I'll go 6.
Very close. Do you want a hot cold, or you want to keep going, or do you just want the answer?
Just give me the answer.
7.
7?
Do you want the members?
Well, was that before? So Herman would make 8, right?
Oh, I thought you were asking how many Hall of Famers have thrown perfect games in relation to Philip Humber, because he wasn't very good.
No, that's what I'm saying. How many of the 24? I'm sorry, you're right. Were Hall of Famers, and it's not that many.
Yeah,
7.
It's only 7. Yeah.
Only 7. Okay, who are the 7?
Cy Young, Eddie Joss, Jim Bunning, Sandy Koufax, Catfish Hunter, Randy Johnson, Roy Halladay.
Eddie Joss, Cleveland. I forgot Randy Johnson had a perfect game too. Randy Johnson, I don't know if Randy Johnson truly gets his just due. Like just how dominant. Guys, Booney has said this many times. Like, you get to the major league level, you're not really afraid of anybody, but guys were legitimately afraid of Randy Johnson, and I don't blame them.
I mean, it's like getting 7 innings of 2016 postseason Andrew Miller with an 102-mile-per-hour fastball added into the mix.
It's he's nasty. He's nasty. All right, coming up top of the hour, we will be talking a little Browns football, a lot of Browns football with Eric Edholm from NFL.com. Also, the report, and I think, ironically enough, we had Eric on the day that the first guy went down as far as the gambling stuff in the NFL, and now he's scheduled to join us again, where Adam Schefter's saying a handful of guys. Like, if you're going to do it, just say like a few, half dozen. What is a handful? If I try to grab a handful of guys, what is a handful of guys? 6, 7, 8, any of them big names? I don't know. But we'll talk to Eric Edholm, obviously, about the Browns. He has them. Nobody wants. I don't want anybody talking about them. But Eric says we have to because they could very easily be a very sneaky contender this year. He's right, but we'll talk about him with that, or talk about that with him when we bring him in coming up at noon. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back on the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network, we will play a little fair or foul. That is on the way next, right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. All righty, welcome back to the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Close that door, Jack. All right. Before we get to fair or foul, again, coming up top of the hour, Eric Edholm with NFL.com will join us. But right now, and don't forget, the Guardians getting set to take on the Kansas City Royals in a little bit. 2:10 first pitch, going for the sweep. If they get the W, they will be an even 500 at 40-40, and they are already in first place, but they would be an even 500 at 40-40. And Jose Ramirez with the grand slam last night. Tito Francona, I think I heard, was going to join them, is supposed to join them Friday, tomorrow in Chicago. So we shall see. But without further ado and no music, let's play a little fair or foul with Jack.
Here we go. So first question for you, Chico.
Jack, how could you not find the music again?
I don't know. I've never taught how to do the music. I'm working. I'm trying.
Okay, it's all right. It's all right.
Fair or foul? Both Ohio teams will make the MLB playoffs.
Baseball playoffs. Yeah, I'll go fair with that. I think both are gonna win their divisions. I know Booney said Milwaukee, and maybe I am buying into Red. Maybe I have a little bit of Reds fever. Look, their pitching is not very good at all, but I don't know. There's just something, they've got an absolute stud closer, Edwin Diaz's little brother, Ellie De La Cruz and T.J. Friedel, and they got Votto back forever. I don't know. It just feels something kind of magical there with the Cincinnati Reds. So, yeah, I'll go fair on that.
So this is the hot take of the day, fair or foul. Fair or foul, Bo Naylor will one day be better than his brother Josh.
Foul.
No, not even a debate on it?
Well, I mean, Josh Naylor is first of all, when you say better, like, Josh is a power hitter. Is Bo going to be a power hitter? How do you a better player? Like WAR?
I guess going off WAR. Because there's other aspects where, like, Bo's a better fielder, he's better speed.
Yeah, I mean, he plays a more important position. That's my point, is like Josh, Josh is a power hitter. Josh is going to drive in runs. That's very important, particularly on this team. And he's been doing that very, very well this year, despite a lot of slumps and not scoring runs a whole lot. But, I'd go foul just because right now Josh is on a better pace from just a number standpoint. But, again, how do you define better player? Like, I mean, defensively speaking, it would be Bo. But, yeah.
Well, I guess you go all, like, including defense then.
Yeah, they're just two different players. It's
That's
just
fair.
Yeah.
Fair or foul, Brian Rocchio starts on opening day next year at shortstop.
Rocchio. I'll go fair on that. Yeah, I'll go fair on that. Though I think they could. I mean, you're not going to have Ahmed Rosario there. I think it's a matter of, what this comes down to is at the trade deadline, because somebody's getting moved. I mean, Tyler Freeman's going to get moved, or Gabriel Arias is going to get moved, or Rocchio could get moved. Is it Rocchio or Rocchio? I don't know.
I think it depends on the announcer. I've mostly heard when I would watch AAA, they would always say Rocchio, but Underwood says Rocchio.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just pick your poison.
Okay. He's a great, great player, great prospect. Next year at this time. So that's, and again, we're having to factor in the trade possibilities. Yeah, I think I'll go fair on that. I think I can see that happening.
So you touched on this one earlier in the show, but I'm guessing looking for your deeper analysis of it. I wrote this one earlier today. Tristan McKenzie will pitch another game this year as a Cleveland Guardian. Fair or foul?
I'd love to say fair, but no, foul. And they're not gonna risk it. I mean, even if he's feeling better, but there's still some. Yeah, it feels like it's a serious injury. I hope I'm wrong. God, I hope I'm wrong on that, because he is even more than just being a great pitcher and having to deal with the injuries he's dealt with. And my God, last year when he took off in the second half, he was amazing. He's a great, great young man. I mean, he's so well-spoken. He's great with the fans. You just hate to see this, but I'm gonna go foul. I don't think he's gonna pitch another game this year.
And the next one. So this happened last year, which people forget. The Guardians will not relinquish first place after taking it over. Fair or foul?
Foul. Because, and that doesn't mean they don't win the division, but I think it's going to be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It'll be like, what's happened this last week. Guardians run into the Braves for 3 games. If it's a half game, they have, when they get done with Atlanta, will it still be a half game? Will Minnesota be in first place? I think this is going to be a seesaw affair, and I think it's going right down to the wire.
Okay, so this is a last one. This is a late ad off breaking news from a few minutes ago, with Logan Allen being optioned down to AAA Columbus for Cal Quantrill to make the start. Fair or foul, Cal Quantrill will make more starts than Logan Allen as a Cleveland Guardian the rest of the year.
I'm going to say fair on that, only because, not because Cal Quantrill's better than Logan Allen or anything like that. I think that, and I know Quantrill's coming off that shoulder injury, but it didn't appear to be too serious. I just think they're going to be very, no, pardon the pun, guarded and very careful with Logan Allen's innings and Bibby's innings. That's another thing when people, and I understand it with Shane Bieber, like if you get the right deal, you're going to move him. But I couldn't quite grasp, I couldn't quite understand some of those fans out there that were going, well, you can move Shane Bieber. We got these young guys, and this is not. You don't just plug in what they did in the minors as far as innings and say, oh, well, they can. This is a lot. I mean, you saw Logan Allen last night. When did he have to get pulled? In the 4th inning? Because his pitch count was way up. I mean, that's something with a young pitcher you're going to have, and they're going to be very cautious. They're not going to, and there's right now we're staring down what's going on with Tristan McKenzie. Now, I think they handled him well. It wasn't their fault. It was just, it happened. But you're going to make damn sure that you're not being reckless when it comes to Tanner Bibee. You're going to make damn sure that you're not being reckless when it comes to Logan Allen and, Gavin Williams as well and all of that. So, it's just, that's something that they are very cognizant of, and they should be.
That was all I had for you in terms of the fair or fouls.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jack. We will take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into a little NFL. Top of the hour, we'll have Eric Edholm from NFL.com. He says the Browns, at least according to him, they're going to be a sneaky contender. So he's talking about them. I like the fact that they're kind of just flying under the radar. We'll talk about that when we come back as well. It's the Chico Bormann Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back to the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Coming up in just a few minutes, we will hook up with Eric Edholm of NFL.com. Before we get to that, a very big announcement in the world of entertainment. Pat Sajak stepping down as the Wheel of Fortune host. Now, what I did not know is that apparently Vanna White, I mean, like they're kind of, that's a package deal. And apparently Vanna White is, she's suing, I think. I read where there's a lawsuit because she may not be retained and or they may want to change her role and Seacrest may want to bring somebody in to be Vanna. I've heard it could even be Pat Sajak's daughter. But Vanna, I don't know if Vanna has like a lifetime contract to turn the vowels and consonants and all that good stuff. You can't. I mean, I know everything comes to an end, but Vanna White, it's one thing not to have Pat, but to be without Pat and Vanna seems pretty harsh. Very harsh.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, you got Chico and Bohm, you got Kathy Lee and Regis. There's so many great duos. You got to throw Pat Sajak and Vanna in there as well, and it's just a sad day to see.
I was kind of surprised
broken up.
that they went with. I mean, not surprised. I guess that's just it. I wasn't surprised, and I wanted to be surprised with the hire. If it's going to be Ryan Seacrest, I feel like Seacrest is kind of like, and I don't have anything against the guy. But I feel like he's the boring, neutral. You're not going to, it's not flashy, but it's also not going to get you in trouble. I wanted to see them go flashy with this one. And Seacrest, which by the way, how does Ryan Seacrest even have enough time in his day?
He does so many shows, and he looks the exact same as he did when I was like 5 years old. Like, he looks like the exact same human being.
And that's good.
Does Jeff Probst, the Survivor guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't age either.
And that's good. That's very good for you as far as in that business, because if you don't age, I mean, Pat Sajak was doing Wheel of Fortune when I was, I feel like when I was like 5 years old, he was doing it. I'm in my 40s now. Like, he was forever doing Wheel of Fortune. And I feel like of all of the shows, and I know Jeopardy, very, very popular, and I have no problem saying if people say Jeopardy's better than Wheel of Fortune, that's fine. But as far as like the popularity, I think more people actually could relate. Like, they had 20 million viewers. Wheel of Fortune had 20 million viewers. And it could have been more at some point back in the day. I don't know. I felt like Jeopardy was great, and I love Jeopardy, but I also think that it didn't connect with a certain demographic. Like the Brainiacs that did, I'm not even saying Brainiacs, but like if you weren't necessarily Wheel of Fortune, you can always, because I mean it's basically like Hangman. Everybody played Hangman in school, where you know what Hangman is?
Yes, I do. I was never very good at it, but
yeah. So you're picking the letters, so it's the same thing basically.
You're saying like Jeopardy is harder because you didn't like grow up like relating to it as much. Like no one like some people do like academic challenge when they're a kid, but like no
My
one
brother
like,
did.
does that.
Yeah, no. I think Jeopardy, I guess what I'm saying is Jeopardy is kind of more, Jeopardy feels more sophisticated than Wheel of Fortune did. Plus the bloopers for Wheel of Fortune, I mean, we've all seen that. And I think people tuned in as much for the bloopers as they did anything else. So, yeah.
Who is your GOAT, though? Is it Alex or Pat?
That is honestly too tough to call. I would. Oh man, I'll tell you what. We've got him on the line, so we'll bring him in. That's going to be the first question. I have a feeling that most people are going to go Trebek, and I've got no problem with that. But Pat Sajak was pretty damn solid. Pretty damn solid. This guy's pretty damn solid as well. He's Eric Edholm with NFL.com. Also catch him on the NFL Network. And he joins us here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Mr. Edholm, how are you, buddy?
Are you talking game show host today? This is right up my alley.
Well, yeah, we just kind of, as we were waiting for you, I was noting that, and okay, you can, you're a reporter. You're right. So you can maybe put your reporter's hat on for this one. Are you hearing anything that Vanna White has filed a lawsuit? I read that.
Jeez. Wow, I hadn't heard that. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard that like she might be phased out because I guess we were talking about it. I guess it's going to be Ryan Seacrest.
I saw that, and I had previously heard that like Pat Sajak's daughter was maybe going to take over in the show. I don't know if she sat in at time. I don't know what. I mean, Pat and Vanna made it work for so long. We assumed they were like the it's
a package deal.
Right, the non-married couple,
right?
Like they were a package, right? Exactly.
So, okay, if you had to choose, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but Alex Trebek or Pat Sajak? It's tough, isn't it?
I will say this: it is tough. I think Trebek achieved a level of respect that is hard to do in this society, right? Where you don't find too many people who dislike him. But I'll tell you what, Pat Sajak is sneaky funny and smart. And I counted on him once. This would have been right about when you and I started talking, probably 2004 or 5. Did a celebrity Super Bowl predictions column, and I got Sajak, and he gave a funny answer. I'll have to go try to find it and look it up. But I mean, he thought about it, put some clever wording into it, and made it fun.
Well, that's interesting because I just recently, maybe over the last year or so, realized he was on Twitter. And I would follow his
exactly.
And you're right. Like his Twitter account, it's like, oh, all right, Pat. I didn't know you had that in you. Yeah, he's got some good comedy chops with him. That's good.
Let me tell a joke at a taping of I almost said Price is Right at the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
When I was in the 8th grade, we went out to there. We watched they taped 3 shows at a time. In between, they vamp and have some time to like kill between setting up the game. And like a 12-year-old Edholm told a St. Patty's Day joke. I can't remember exactly what it was, but
I love it. I absolutely love it. Follow him on Twitter at Eric_Edholm as he joins us. All right, so I want to get to. I was just, and I've been saying this for a while, that I'm kind of enjoying the fact the Browns now next order of business will be going to Greenbrier, West Virginia, coming up. I think it's July 22nd. Get away from everybody. They get the extra week because of the Hall of Fame game. Yep. But I love the fact that they're just kind of sneaking under the radar and nobody's talking about them because you know what? Really, they don't deserve it. I mean, as far as expectations go and then falling short of those expectations, I think a lot of media around the country, forget about fans for a moment, I think a lot of media is just like, I'm not going to pick the Browns because, until they actually go out and prove it and do something with it, then maybe we will. And then there's the idea from a fan standpoint. I said on the air the other day that there was a time, 2019, 2020, that pandemic year, where the Browns were easy to cheer for nationally.
Sure.
That's not the case. And, I mean, fair or unfair, Deshaun Watson, that whole thing is affecting that. So I'm liking the fact that they're kind of flying under the radar. But then you said in your recent column, you basically said that the Browns are a sneaky contender, and it feels like Vegas is starting to pick up on that as well. If you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I can't comment specifically on the Vegas stuff, NFL media rules and all that, but they're pretty smart to keep an eye on me and my preseason predictions. I don't know. They just have a feel of a contender this year. It's a tough division, as you know, right? The Ravens, after all their hand-wringing, figured everything out. They got OBJ. They signed Lamar. Had a pretty good offseason, all things considered. Pittsburgh is always going to be competitive. We obviously know, Mike Tomlin, even in bad years, finds a way to finish above 500. And, have to imagine that Kenny Pickett takes some sort of step forward. Bengals, I have a hard time not putting them in my Super Bowl contender pool, right? I mean, defensively, maybe there's some things you worry about, especially in the defensive backfield. But, yeah, I mean, even with the tough division, I see the Browns as being – maybe this year's Minnesota Vikings. Vikings, I think most people kind of had them in that 8, 9, 10 win range a year ago. Good team, solid, maybe not great. I thought they were more like an 11-win team, and then they ended up winning 13. Again, there are differences between this year's Browns and last year's Vikings, but a team that's potentially potent offensively, potentially some questions on defense, but enough big play potential to kind of, keep them in most games, I would think.
One of the, you mentioned Pittsburgh, and I don't, just because they have Mike Tomlin, I know they're not going to be bad. Right. But I'm trying to figure out, how good are they? And, Kenny Pickett, you hear a lot of good things about him. I'm still not sold that he's, I don't know, maybe he'll take that huge leap this year. But I feel like with Pittsburgh, we know that they're not going to be awful, but I don't know how good they're actually going to be this year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, right, they still have, I know they added a couple pieces of the offensive line. That was a priority this offseason. They wanted to add to the defensive line. That was something they had to do. Cornerback, they lose Cam Sutton. That's a tough one, but they draft Joey Porter. So, maybe it's a little bit of a wash there or a tiny step down. But, they theoretically have addressed some issues this offseason. Does Najee Harris bounce back? Does George Pickens break out? What does Allen Robinson give him? I have no idea, right? He's been such a mystery player. And Deontay Johnson hasn't exactly been the most reliable number one. The drops and the inconsistency. He gives you big plays, but, headaches too, right? So, yeah, they're just a slew of questions. But, you come back to the fact that they still have Cam Hayward, who's defying age and time and is still one of the best at what he does. TJ Watt missed a ton of games last year, and I think they lost all but one of them or something like that. So, or, a couple, maybe they won 2 of the games he missed or something. I think they have some, young talent, but also the established guys like Minka and Alex Highsmith, and it's a pretty good defense. I don't know that, again, I'm with you. I can't see him as a bad football team, but I also would have a hard time picking him to battle with the Ravens and the Browns and the Bengals in the division.
You ran your, we're talking to Eric Edholm, NFL.com. You ran your little piece the other day about crowded backfields or crowded skill position groups, I should say, and how touches will shake out. Even though the Browns weren't in that, I'm curious how you think, because we've been kind of discussing that as well. You've got a great backfield, obviously led by Nick Chubb, wide receivers. I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to join this group, but you have Amari Cooper. Elijah Moore really was the talk of minicamp. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I think Moore is the breakout candidate this year. And, obviously the situation in New York was very strange. And, there was one point where he was a healthy scratch and they didn't really know what to do with him. But I think, unlocked in this offense as an underneath option. I'm sure that Deshaun and Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski are going to find ways to get the ball in his hands, kind of like Kadarius Toney in Kansas City, rather. A do-it-all slot X factor. Maybe he throws the ball. Maybe he gets it on end arounds and things like that. Trick play specialist, but also an underneath guy who can generate big yards after the catch. Donovan Peoples-Jones is your solid Z receiver. Amari Cooper is your go-to guy, your X. And I thought Goodwin and who they Cedric Tillman, third round pick who played like a first rounder 2 years ago. I thought, big bodied kid, very impressive. You still got David Bell. I could have put him on that list because, we know Cooper's going to get a lot of touches. We figure Moore gets a pretty good chunk as well. But, there's a lot of mouths to feed, especially if you don't fully trust the tight end position. And also, for that matter, the running back position as a pass catching group.
One of the storylines right now, and I think it's only going to continue. I don't see this one really going away. Maybe it does. Is what's going on in Western New York with Buffalo. Seemingly, you thought everything was hunky-dory, everybody's getting along, everybody's fine, and then picking up from last year when Stephon Diggs wasn't happy in that playoff loss, and it spilled over into camp, I guess. It feels like, I know we like to blow things out of proportion, but Eric, it feels like this is something that is just kind of hovering and doesn't feel like it's something that's going to be just swept away and nothing's gonna come of it anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly listen to anybody who has this is the June talk and this is the early July and we kind of turn mountains into, or molehills into mountains, if you will, and there is an element of that where the slow part of the off season kind of puts the magnifying glass on certain stories. But even in the absence of a lot of big controversial things going on this summer, I think it's a mistake to overlook this one and say everything's hunky-dory and everything's fine. I talked to somebody there in Buffalo and kind of asked about it and didn't get the full picture, but like that playoff game wasn't the first time that there was tension in the building.
Yeah.
Obviously the Bills started out hot. They looked like a strong team. They survived some injuries on defense. They were scoring a bunch of points. They kind of figured out after a few bumps in the road what was going on offensively. And then, things just got a little tense and a little strained by the end of the year. So it was at least a few weeks, if not a month, kind of building up to that game. And, is it a shock they lost? No, but to kind of get thoroughly beat down the way they did and have the offense really come up short in a number of games. They should have won up in Minnesota. That was a crazy game, but they had every opportunity to do so. Finishing drives, avoiding turnovers, things like that. But as far as the tension between, we assume, I don't want to say something that isn't true, but it feels like Diggs and Josh Allen, even though Josh has said, hey, I love the guy, I want him here, blah, blah, blah. There's something going on there. And it's sort of preventing this from being an easy Super Bowl contender where you say, all right, things go right, they win, they're in the mix. But all of a sudden there's a little hesitation with these guys. What's happening with them and how does this get figured out? Remember Diggs, they won the Minneapolis Miracle up with the Vikings, and then the next year things weren't good. And maybe we're at the similar phase in what Diggs went through before.
And it almost, and maybe I'm wrong on this, maybe they were going to announce it anyway, but like the McDermott extension and the Brandon Beane extension, it just seems like, you know what? We were going to put this off a little bit. Let's go ahead and do it now so we can kind of put it out. We need something good to hit the news cycle. Like I said, they're both deserving of it, but it kind of felt like we need something to kind of help us through this right now.
Yeah. I mean, are you also saying you think maybe the Bills struggle a little bit this year or not nearly as good as a result? Like you get this extension done ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because if you wait after, let's say, a 9 or 10 win season when everybody's expecting 12, 13, whatever, I mean, maybe that's the case too. I don't know. I don't think they would have done it this early, but I agree with you. I mean, when there is that kind of weird summer, awkwardness lingering around a team that theoretically is one of the best half dozen in the league, then it is a good time to kind of feed people a little bit of, give them something to cheer about in a time that's a little bit strange right now.
Well, let's continue with that theme, because the team that really intrigues me, and maybe I think it's one of the biggest questions anywhere in the NFL. If Tua Tagovailoa can stay healthy for an entire season, and I know that's a big if. I mean, obviously the concussions are serious, but let's just say he can get through the majority of that season healthy. Miami strikes me as a team that could really, and I know you've got the Jets now with Rodgers, but I feel like the Dolphins could really do some damage in that East.
Yeah, they could. I mean, obviously it's, the speed at receiver. Now they even added Devin Achane, the kid who can run a sub 4.3 at running back too. Maybe you lose a little bit at tight end, but they've got some playmakers. Now, is it enough? Especially with Tyreek Hill, this incident that recently happened. What's going to come of that? Is there some sort of fallout from that? Gives you another reason to be concerned, because if he's out, then that changes, even if it's for a couple of games. I mean, that makes a difference. And I would say defensively too, obviously getting Jalen Ramsey this offseason was kind of the big centerpiece, but it wasn't like he played at an all-pro level last year and you sort of feel 100% convinced, okay, this is the guy who changes our unit. But they certainly have added waves of depth on defense that they hadn't had in the past. So the past 2 years, I really felt like they've added so nicely to that group. But Bradley Chubb's got to be big for him. Ramsey's got to come through. Xavier Howard's got to be back to where he was at the peak of his career. And then that young defensive line has to produce. So, but you're right. Figure out the O-line, keep those playmakers in place. And obviously Tua is the big health question, but I still think he can get it done. I'm still kind of hanging on to my belief that he's an NFL quarterback and a legit one. I don't know that he's a star, but a good quarterback.
Final thing for you. Again, we're talking to Eric Edholm with NFL.com. And, one of I think the last time you were on with me, and I promise this wasn't, I didn't
scripted.
I wasn't trying to script this, but we ended with talk about the gambling thing and guys getting busted. And then yesterday we get a report, I think it was Schefter, that said a handful. I don't know what a handful of guys is. Like, is that 4? Is that 8? Is that who knows? But I mean, are you here? Are any of these big names that you're hearing, or because I don't know. This thing feels serious, and it feels like the NFL is maybe trying to. I know the policy's been in place for a while.
Yeah,
but I guess the reality is, how many of these players actually knew the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of what you can and can't do with this gambling stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it really is it's a good topic to discuss, because you have somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 players, some who are on rosters now, will remain on rosters, through the, for the next 5 years or whatever. But then you have the players who are on one team's practice squad for a week, and then they get cut, and then, they move on to the next club. And hey, maybe they missed the speech with one team. Maybe they, missed the presentation with their second club. And I'm not making excuses, but you can see how some players might slip through the cracks. However, when you have, first, second, and third round picks, guys who have had that roster continuity, who are theoretically being drafted for their leadership and their intelligence and their poise and all that, well, you got to have it off the field too. Or, in a situation like this, take care of the details, and they're lined out pretty clearly, right? And they always say, like, look, if you ever have a question about these things, we have hotlines, right? We have hotlines for performance enhancing drugs. If you're ever in a situation, we have a ride share thing. Like, the NFL does provide a lot of resources for the players. I just don't know that they always take advantage of them. And when it comes to the gambling stuff, right? Maybe they're not reading the fine print and saying, oh, I didn't realize you couldn't bet at the team's facility. Even if I'm sitting in my car, 2 minutes away from driving out of here. Well, technically that's still the same thing. I'm just using that as an example. But,
Right.
All these things are part of being a professional, and it's not all the players' fault. I'm sure there are, some missed opportunities on the other side to educate everybody, but it's got to be a partnership, if you will, to say that, hey, if we want to make this thing work, we got to be buttoned up on it.
So if I read correctly, and if you know the answer, great. If you don't, that's okay too. But like the players, my understanding is the players are allowed to bet on other sports. They just can't place the bet at the facility. Right. Now,
or at a sports book during the season, that's another one. Like that, you really have to be. There are certain times of the year. Like, for instance, I can walk into a sports book now, but at the start of the NFL season, I can't, right? Because I'm an NFL employee, and the same rules apply to the players and coaches and whatnot.
Yeah, and and that's just it. Coaches are not allowed to bet on any other sport, but the players can't. It's just, I don't know, but you're right. It's out there. I just think these guys, if they said that they knew, what they could and couldn't do, they might need to review that. But,
Right.
You just hope that this isn't going to be some big names coming. I mean, Calvin Ridley lost, $11 million for a $1,500 bet?
Career in his prime. Yeah. I mean, obviously, he could have a great season, and it's all kind of forgotten for now. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, you risk – obviously Jamison Williams in Detroit, a guy who missed a big chunk of his year with a rookie year with an ACL, now missing 40% of the season to start the year this year. It's like, this is career-changing stuff for some guys.
Yeah, absolutely. He's Eric Edholm. Follow him on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. And, of course, you can read him. Great stuff, and certainly even better when it comes to draft time at NFL.com. Eric, always a pleasure, buddy. Appreciate you taking the time, and we'll do it again soon, man.
All right, man. Talk to you soon, dude.
All right. Eric Edholm, NFL.com, joining us. Yeah, I feel like I'm defending them and acting like they're, a bunch of kids, and they're not. They're adults. They know right from wrong. But I also wonder, like, the NFL, I said this yesterday, have they done everything they need to do to make sure that these guys know? Now, again, you can only do so much. I mean, they are adults, even though we treat them like kids sometimes. They are adults, and they know right from wrong. But, I mean, some little detail, Eric was saying, you can, if it's not in the season, not in season, you can place a bet from a sports book or from a casino, but once the season starts, if you do it from the facility, you're in trouble. And if you go into a casino and place a bet in season, no matter what sport, because that's the other thing. The players can bet on other sports, but the coaches and executives can't. I don't get that. Why would it just be the same for everybody? I think some of these players, look, I think there are some that genuinely really do not know when it comes to the facility what they can and can't do. And then I also think there are some players that, quite frankly, you know what? I'll be able to get away with it. They won't track this. They won't. Well, they are. And I mean, they're like when Ridley got busted, and then when these the Colts guy got busted, the NFL was saying right away, they were asked the question, like, are you guys shocked with this? Are you concerned about it? And they're like, well, not really, because this tells us our system in place, what we're trying to do and how we're trying to enforce it is working. Okay, I get that. I think that guys need to understand that if they think that they're going to go through somebody, because I think it's only logical, right? I want a piece of that action. I want to get that game in there. I'll just I'll call up my buddy and the bet will go through him, and maybe that'll work. Some might get careless and do like a burner account, and they track that. Like, they're tracking a lot of that stuff. I'll be honest. I had this vision of the Browns getting off to this great start. They're playing well. Everything is great in Berea. And then we get word that, like, Deshaun Watson was in the meeting room and placed a bet on the Guardians game, and he's done for the year. And so far, no big names. But what happens when it is a big name? What happens when it's a stud quarterback? Is the NFL going to react the same way? I mean, Calvin Ridley was a big name. I don't know if Calvin Ridley, that was kind of like the, hey, we're serious. We're gonna use Calvin Ridley here. Like I said, Calvin Ridley lost $11 million and an entire season. If the NFL was smart, they would probably have him talking to rookies at those rookie symposiums and getting the word out that way. I don't know if they did that. I don't know if he wants to do that. But what happens, it's what we all want to know, right? Because the NFL can cover up like nobody's business. They do it for their own. They do it for the shield, for the owners. And, that's what Raj does. Raj has paid a lot of money to make the NFL a lot of money and also to take some bullets for the NFL. And he does that very, very well. Very, very well. Some of it is kind of shady. A lot of it is kind of shady. But, you know, at the end of the day, what are you going to do when, because it only feels natural that one of these big names is going to get busted with this. And then what are they going to do? Are they going to try to hide it? Because that's not going to be good for the game. Yeah, I guess they could stand behind the old, you know, hey, look at this. We're not messing around with this. But I don't know if they really want to do. I don't know if they want to sacrifice one of their stars if they were to find out that he was guilty. This is something to keep your eye on. I hope now that, you know, every single team. You don't need the NFL to step in. You don't need the players' union to step in. Just, you know, have a meeting. Now, maybe they are having these. You hear some reports that, oh, yeah, they have these 2 or 3 times a year. What do they say? Like, how in detail do they get? Because I have a feeling that guys really don't know what they can and can't do at the facility. That is concerning. But yet, if they go out to their car in the parking lot, pull out of the parking lot, pull on the side of the road, and make a bet. Is that legal? But it's not legal if they're still parked in the lot. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those weird things. And unfortunately, you know, the NFL they're going to kind of, it's like everything the NFL does. NFL officiating, this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to run things. Are all of our officials cool with this? Do they know all the rules? Do they know exactly what they should and shouldn't call? Not really, but we'll just kind of take it as it comes. That's kind of what they do. We'll just take it as it comes. Well, if you get a big star that gets tangled up in this, I'll be very curious to see how they react to it and what the decision is from New York. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. Final half hour, the Chico Bormann Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. All righty, final half hour on this Thursday, the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Good to have you along. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter, and we stream the show live every day, Monday through Friday, now at a new time, 11 until 1. Do so over on Twitter, as I said, at Chico Show CLE. Also, go over to YouTube and type in the Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, and you will be all set to go. All right, so NBA free agency officially gets underway tomorrow. I believe 6 p.m. is when they can start signing officially, and none of these official deadlines are actually official, or there's always something shady going on. But anyway, Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, Woj, as we affectionately know him, with Woj Bombs. Cavaliers fully guaranteeing forward Cedi Osman's $6.7 million contract for this season. Osman has averaged nearly 10 points a game in his 6 seasons with the Cavaliers. Jack, you didn't seem real happy with that. You were kind of making fun of, which, I mean, Cedi has his ups and downs, but you got to turn your mic on, but there you go.
Yeah, I know. I realize that now. I just think it's tough to trade the contract now if you need to at some point this year, because now it can't be. I'm like you, where I don't understand the whole NBA, the salary cap, the way the protected, unprotected with some trades and stuff like that. But I believe, based off what I read, I could be wrong. It kind of made it a lot harder to trade Cedi if need be. I don't know if he's even in a position to get traded, but it goes back in, like you said, salary cap too, whether it's going for a bigger option or if you just want to get a couple guys that are maybe around $3.5 million. I think we still have the mid-level exception though, so
they do have that.
That kind of makes up for my not hatred, but my dislike towards Cedi, unless maybe Karis LeVert would come back on the MLE, but I'm not sure about that.
Well, I think that they're going to try to. That was my next. That was the next thing I was going to bring up. Karis LeVert. I know they want to get him back, and I think they will. They could probably sign him to a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, or no. Well, if you use the mid-level exception, what would that be? 12.2.
Yeah, I was going to say it's somewhere 12 and a low half.
15 to $18 million annually is what Fedor's putting out. By the way, Chris Fedor is going to join me tomorrow on the show at 11:20. Yeah, I just don't think. I mean, for those that are expecting a big splash, those are expecting. I don't know. Is Miles Bridges considered too big of a? Is that too big of a splash? Is that realistic? Is it not realistic?
Do you mean in terms of the money? Or just the move in general?
No, money I think is in general is kind of what we're getting at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a low risk, high reward type of move. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of traction around the league because of what happened, obviously, and I think that, at least in my opinion, the way I've always viewed it is when things like that happen in real life, it's much different than sports, but in leagues like the major pro sports, you're going to get a second chance somewhere. That's just the nature of it. And 8 to 9 out of 10 cases, these guys end up back in the league, and I'd rather have Bridges in a Cavs jersey than not because he's a really good basketball player.
Well, he is a very good basketball player. Didn't Charlotte, didn't they extend him an offer, which means they can, I think Charlotte.
So is he an RFA then?
Yeah, he's restricted.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be, and I want to say it was around $8 million, but if the Cavs were, I don't even know what the Cavs can offer him. I have no idea. 9, 10, I don't know. But the Charlotte Hornets can match any offer as the team that he's with, the restricted free agent. So I don't know.
Would that result? Is it baseball at all? Would they get a second round pick or anything as compensation, or is that just straight up because I know hockey as well with RFAs, if you do outbid the team that has his rights, then you have to give them 2 picks or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think it goes to the level of what baseball does, but yeah, I don't. Wow. Yeah, Bridges, I know a lot of people are talking about Bridges. I know Padone is in love with Bridges, and I like the player. Little squeamish as far as some of the off the court stuff, but it doesn't feel like they're really going to be able to afford him. And I think Charlotte, I mean, if they gave him an offer that, unless it's a ridiculous offer, and I don't think the Cavs, that's the thing, I don't think the Cavs can offer something ridiculous where Charlotte would balk and say, well, if you want him for that, go ahead and take him. I don't see that happening.
I think it's like you're either getting Bridges or you're getting Karras back. I think there's no in between on that. I don't think there's a financial feasible way that both of those can return. Yeah,
I think. Well, they're talking. I don't know. I think they're talking. It sounds like from fans you hear, and I know that the fans don't necessarily have the ins and outs. Hell, I don't even have the ins and outs of how the Cavs salary cap thing work. But I do know that they've been talking for a while. Like Karis LeVert is a priority. I've got no problem with that. Like I thought Karis LeVert, they all struggled in the postseason. They all struggled in that Knicks series. I thought Karis LeVert, both ways. He had some really good offensive games. Defensively, he's long. He's a much better defender than everybody gave him credit or didn't credit him for when he was in Indiana. I think LeVert will be back. What that price tag's going to, yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, maybe they can't do both. Bridges to me just feels like a bit of a pipe dream. Like it's a nice wish list, but I don't think he's gonna. I don't think they're gonna be able to afford him. Now, a guy like Max Strus, who at times he was huge, and then at times he kind of did the jetty. He disappeared. Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely not going to be that big splash signing coming up tomorrow. We don't think. And as far as trades and everybody started going nuts when Windhorst said, I'm hearing some outlandish stuff. Had to clarify, no, it does not include Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland being traded. I think Sam Amico had put out that Darius Garland could be getting traded, and right away Windhorst is like, no, that's not happening. So I mean, we'll see. I do wonder about Jared Allen. I think there's something cooking there. I think I'm not saying they're openly shopping him. I do think they are at least trying to get some sort of a feel for what he could get on the market and what they could get for him in a deal. Because I don't know. I still say going back to that postseason, it was one thing to play like that. It's another thing to say, like, yeah, you know what? The lights were too bright. Like that. I think that probably turned a lot of people off, even though he was being very candid, and we appreciate that. I don't know. So Jared Allen, if there's a trade that goes down, and that would be a big trade. I mean, it's not Mitchell or Garland. I don't want it to be Mitchell or Garland, but that would be a big deal. I don't know. I don't know who Kobe might be talking to. The thing about Kobe Altman is, he could have something up his sleeve. I mean, nobody saw the Jared Allen trade when it came our way. Nobody saw, I think even Karis LeVert, nobody really saw that. Nobody really saw the Donovan Mitchell. It was like, yeah, we know that he likes him, but oh no, it's going to happen. So I don't know. We shall see tomorrow. We'll have Chris Fedor on the show coming up at 11:20, and then at noon we'll talk to Paul Hoynes. Be interesting to see what the Guardians do with the pitching rotation. Cal Quantrill is slated to start tomorrow in Chicago against the Cubs. Tito's already said, and I agree with him, maybe they go to a 6-man rotation once through, but they're not going to go to a 6, because then it's limiting their bullpen. Like, you can only have so many pitchers. They're not going to – Tito, there's no way in hell Tito's going to limit himself in the bullpen. So one of those guys is probably, even if they do go once through the rotation using 6, one of those guys will be sent down, I would think. Do you have any guesses on who it might be?
I actually have hot take when it comes to the Guardians rotation of what's going to happen here soon.
Okay.
If that is allowable for you. I am very big on the train of Cody Morris coming back up and taking a starting spot. I think he was awesome last year in his time as a starter, those last few weeks. During September, came back up here, got one game out of the bullpen after he came off the 60-day. Got, I believe it was Bogarts, Machado, and Soto out. Got sent back down to stretch.
I mean, now in fairness, you mentioned Cody Morris a while ago when he was hurt.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you have a little bit of a man crush on him, which is okay.
Big Cody Morris fan.
Yeah, but why would you give him a spot now? Like, I mean,
I'm saying this is in the scenario where, like, if Quantrill, he came back from injury, isn't looking great to isn't looking up to par for what the Guardians want out of him.
Yeah.
Logan Allen, I think it's maybe like more of like a couple, maybe not months, but make sure his innings are in check, like you said. Work on his pitch count, because in Columbus you can develop guys more so than in Cleveland when you're trying to win. I think there's going to be a spot that squeaks open in there.
Okay.
And I think also, if you're the Guardians and you had Cody Morris in your bullpen, where he's been reliable so far as a major league pitcher, at least to the extent that we've seen him pitching, you wouldn't send him back down to build his arm back up to start if you weren't going to start him.
Yeah, but I don't know if that necessarily correlates to he gets a call up to get a rotation spot this year. Like, yeah, it would have to be. Yeah, it would have to be that, like, Quantrill really struggles. I just don't think if somebody gets sent down, so that means, okay, but then if you send somebody down, but then you bring Morris up, you're still going with a 6-man rotation. And they're not going to. Tito's not going to go with a 6-man.
I don't think they rock 6. I don't think they'll ever even attempt the 6-man.
I think they're going to this time through, but just one time, because you're not going to limit yourself bullpen. So
Bobby got pushed back, right?
Yeah. So essentially, you're saying that they would. Yeah, you would need to then send somebody else out if you're going to bring Cody Morris. Like, if Quantrill goes out and you're down to a
I totally forgot about Gavin Williams' existence.
Yeah,
the past
weeks and he's definitely not going anywhere. Yeah,
no,
I mean, you definitely. I think it's starting to come to. We need to make sure when Cody Morris comes up for good, you got to get with Cody and make sure that you've got your Cody Morris get with Cody Dowk to get a Cody Morris shirt going for you.
Oh yeah, have to.
And by the way, go to our Twitter account, Big Play Store. We've got a nice little the Naylor brothers.
That shirt's awesome. I want one so bad. I was just texting Padone about that.
Cody Dowk has done a great job again. The great Cody, our great graphic designer. He's got a new shirt out. It's kind of in the Super Mario Brothers theme. It's Josh and Bo. Bo, by the way, last night, home run, first major league home run. He had 3 hits as well. And Naylor, obviously Josh has been outstanding. So, yeah, go to @BigPlayStore and check that out. That's the latest edition. There are other really, I've got a 3/4 Guardian shirt that I got not too long ago. Absolutely love it. Of course, you just want to rock Big Play. Well, you can do that as well, too. So go ahead and do that @BigPlayStore and check that out. All right, we are just about out of time on this Thursday. As I said, coming up tomorrow, we will have Chris Fedor coming your way at 11:20. Get the very latest on the Cavs and more, the latest realistic choices for the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll talk to him about that and possibility. I do want to get into him with him on Donovan Mitchell too, because I think there's another one where is he buying that Donovan Mitchell, because he's golfing with Allen Houston, is out the door and he's heading to New York. I can't see that. But we'll talk to Chris at 11:20, and then Hoynesy weighing in on that pitching rotation, because, again, Cal Quantrill will be on the hill tomorrow night, slated anyway, to be on the hill tomorrow night against the Cubs. Today, coming up in just a couple of hours, a little less than a couple of hours, you've got the Kansas City Royals and the Guardians. Guardians going for the sweep of the 3-game series. Shane Bieber against Zach Greinke. 2:10, I believe, is that first pitch. Guardians in first place by a half a game. If they win, they would continue that, and they would get to 500 at 40-40 before the Cubs come to town. Now, next week, after the Cubs, the homestand, I mentioned it's a 7-game homestand right before the All-Star break. You got 3 with Atlanta, and that's going to be no picnic, but then you've got 4 more against these same Royals. So possibly heading into the All-Star break with some momentum. Hopefully you're able to do well on the homestand, not only against Atlanta, but certainly against the Kansas City Royals. But we shall see. All right, thanks to Eric Edholm of NFL.com for joining us. Again, back tomorrow as we will have Chris Fedor at 11:20, Paul Hoynes at noon. Thanks to Jumpin' Jack Flash for being, Jumpin' Jack Flash. Running the controls. And we'll do it again tomorrow at 11 o'clock, the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network.